Alright everybody, I'm going to start a new game and show you a couple things that I've added. So I'm just walking around the scene and you might notice that little circle there. That is an entrance, and if I go into it, it warps me to a different scene, and it warps me way over here off into the distance. And if I go back through here, you can see the color of the tree change. That's how you know you've changed scene. So there you go. When I come back here, again takes me to way off into the distance, looking far away. And then one other cool thing is when you come here and say maybe save and quit, when you choose to start a new game, it shows you the thumbnail of the last viewed save point. So it should help for people to know. This is a bug because I was working on it earlier. It should help people to know, remember where they were in the game when they saved. And then if you continue the journey, it starts you there. I would love to do a little thing where if I can figure out where this kind of like blows up so you kind of warp into there rather than just flipping it, just kind of like straight grows. That would be really cool. So I might try to figure that out at some point, but it's not a high priority yet. So let me show you how this all works. Let me open up the scene. One thing also is I've now moved all the controller objects into just the prefab, and so they're not in the scene. If you want to debug the scene, you can just bring that in and move things around. Otherwise, just delete it. It was far easier just to keep it there being only one rather than having one in every scene and have to delete it. File. All this does is if there's no control objects, then we load one. It would just instantiate one and then destroy this object. Otherwise, destroy this object. So all this does is start the scene, and when we press play, it will, of course, bring in the object and reset to the last game that was played. So if you're debugging, you don't have to load a game. You can just go to any scene, and as long as that, actually any game, yeah, it will just load that game in that scene. So you don't have to go through the whole game necessarily to get there. So that's pretty nice. So let me show you the changes here. First, let's go through the entrance script. The entrance has some options. You can say what scene to load, the ID of the scene. If you watch my last demo, I'm probably going to change this so that you don't need to remember the scene ID. You just name it that, and the script will look up the ID itself. Required object, if there's like a quest object, this code will probably change, but the idea is that maybe some entrances you need to have a special object in order to get through. Query player, if that's true, there's going to be a query box. Do you really want to enter the scene? Force position, if this is on, then it's going to force the player to start at this position in test scene 2. If it's off, then they're going to start wherever their last position was in that scene. So most of the time you're going to use force position, but sometimes you won't. So you have that option. The script is pretty simple. It's just non-trigger enter if the tag is the player. Make sure only one object is that tag, none of the enemies, etc. is that tag. And the time since level load is over 1 second. That way, if they do happen to load the level on the trigger, it won't just automatically make them enter. And then if player entered, if there's no required object required, otherwise I need to add that logic, and I need to add the query player logic, but otherwise master control, go to next scene, the scene to load, scene ID, which I'll adjust this later, make it a little easier, less variables, the start rotation, whether or not we're forcing the position. So let's check out the master script. So the go to next scene function, it takes the scene name, scene ID, player position, player rotation, camera rotation, and whether we're forcing position. If we're forcing the position, then we're going to set in the game data. We're going to set the scene ID for the next scene to be the values we've passed over. Otherwise, that doesn't change. Then we save the game. False means we're not quitting, so we're just saving the game, and then we're loading the next scene. Now we save the game before we load. On mobile, there's a greater chance of crashes during scene changes because of the RAM issues. Uh, and so we save the game beforehand just in case it does crash. I might change this to be an autosave feature so that there's an autosave file that and users have to actively save to save their game, but if they don't, there will be an autosave that happens on scene loads and then perhaps after big things or something, I'm not sure, or every 5 minutes or something like that. And then we load scene, which is just literally load the next scene. There's a change in the save game. This is capture the screenshot. So I'm still trying to figure out a way to do this a little bit better, but the first thing we do, I don't want to include the UI in the screenshot we capture, and so we first hide the UI. And this takes a screenshot every time we save the game. So this is the first thing that happens when we save the game. It takes a screenshot with application capture screenshot. We simply just save it with the game control, game name.png on the disk. We start our code routine, do the save, and go to menu. Now the reason why we have to do this, I don't like it, but we have to do it because capture screenshot captures a shot at the end of the frame. So it doesn't actually capture it right here. Instead, it captures at the end of the frame. So the problem I faced before is if I had turned the UI off, capture it, turn the UI back on. If I didn't quit, then it would capture the scene with the UI on because, of course, the UI turned on right after this, but this didn't actually capture the screenshot until the end of the frame. And then if we were quitting, it would simply capture the no camera in scene button or default image, this image down here, because, of course, we destroy the control objects, which includes the camera, if we're quitting the scene. So this code routine yields for one frame, which I don't know if you noticed earlier when I did save, there was a quick blip. If I'm not quitting, there's a blip where you see the UI disappear and reappear for one frame. And if you are quitting, the UI, the whole scene disappears. You get this scene is missing for one frame, and then it goes to the menu. So it's not ideal. It does save the screenshot. And I've got a forums question right now out trying to figure out how to fix that. If you happen to be watching this and you know the answer and I haven't solved it yet, then please let me know. So after that, it sets the canvas objects back to true, updates the time control. We save the position for the current scene, which is very important that it's the current scene, not the next scene. Eventually we'll save the enemies and items and all other stuff we need to save. And then we actually save the game, save control, save game, pass the game data. Then if we're going to menu, we load the scene and then destroy the control objects. Now control objects, which this is part of, it has don't destroy on load, so we can actually load the scene before we destroy the objects, which is what we're supposed to do. So that's pretty much it. If you want to see the code for the loading, is in main menu control. It's under load selected games. It's this text right here under load image. We've got we use the www to get the file, which is just file : / and the PNG path. Wait for that to load. Assign that to a texture, a new variable, new texture with the www texture command. Create a new rect with the width and height of that texture, and then create a sprite from the texture, that rect at width and height, and with a pivot right in the middle. And then our game preview image variable, the sprite, we attach with the new sprite. That's all it is. It's pretty simple code, remarkably easy to use. I just wish we could get the picture to happen right away rather than at the end of the frame. That's pretty much it for this. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next saving and loading